The night was silent, but something strange was moving in the air. A young man named Daniel slept in his small room, unaware that his life was about to change forever. At first it was just a dream of fire and voices, but when he opened his eyes, the pain was real. He looked at his arm and saw a glowing mark, shining like hot metal pressed against his skin. The mark was not normal. It was a symbol made of lines and circles. Moving as if alive, Daniel gasped and tried to rub it away, but it only burned brighter. For a moment, he thought he was going mad. He grabbed his phone and tried to take a picture. But when the camera opened, the mark faded and vanished. His heart raced, sweat rolled down his face. But when he lowered the phone, the mark returned again, glowing even stronger. It was like it wanted to hide from others but show itself only to him. Daniel stumbled back, his mind racing with fear. "What is happening to me?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Outside, the night was quiet, but he felt eyes watching him from the shadows. His dog Max began barking loudly at the empty corner of the room, his fur standing on end. Daniel's hand shook as he tried to calm the dog, but Max kept growling. The light bulb above flickered. The shadows on the wall stretched longer than they should. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Daniel ran to the bathroom mirror and pulled up his sleeve, staring at the mark glowing like liquid fire. It pulsed once, twice like a heartbeat. He touched it and felt a strange vibration, like electricity under his skin. For a second, he thought he heard whispers, voices speaking in a language he did not understand. But one word was clear, repeated again and again. "Mate, mate, mate." He jumped back, fear spreading through his chest. Why would anyone or anything call him mate? The word felt wrong, alien, as if it was not human speech at all. Daniel rushed back to his bed and pulled the blanket over himself, but the mark glowed through the fabric. He tried to convince himself it was a dream, only a dream, but then his phone buzzed with an emergency news alert. Confused, he picked it up. The message read, "Unidentified signals detected from deep space. Government's monitoring unusual energy waves tonight." Daniel's eyes widened. His mouth went dry. Could it be connected? Could his mark have something to do with the signals? He shook his head, trying to deny the thought. But deep inside, he knew the truth. Hours passed slowly. Daniel could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw visions of strange figures, tall and glowing, their eyes burning like stars in his visions. They reached out their long hands, calling him mate, chosen mate. When morning came, Daniel felt weak, his body heavy like stone. But the mark was still there, glowing faintly under the daylight. He wrapped his arm with a bandage. Hiding it from sight, he could not let anyone know. He was afraid they would lock him away in some lab. At breakfast, his mother asked why he looked pale, but he only shook his head. He could not explain. He could not tell the truth. Later that day, while walking down the street, Daniel felt strange again. The mark heated up, glowing through the bandage. People walking by did not notice, but animals did. A flock of birds suddenly flew away as he passed. Dogs barked, cats hissed. It was as if nature itself knew something was wrong with him. Daniel stopped and leaned against a wall, the world spinning around him. The voices returned, louder now, whispering inside his mind. "Mate, come to us, chosen one. Come." His eyes darted around, but no one was there. He covered his ears, but the voices kept speaking. They were not coming from outside. They were inside his own head that night. Daniel tried to sleep again, but the mark had other plans. It glowed brighter than before. Filling his room with pale blue light, Max barked again, this time running under the bed and hiding. Daniel's heart pounded. He could feel the mark pulling him, dragging him. His body moved on its own, step by step toward the window. When he opened the curtains, he froze. High in the sky, silent and terrifying, was a shape. It was not an airplane, not a star. It was something massive, hanging above the clouds. For a second, it looked like a dark mountain floating in the night. But then lights moved across its surface, forming symbols that matched the mark on his skin. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The whispers inside his head grew louder. "Mate, you belong to us. You are marked. You are ours." His knees shook. His hands trembled. His whole body wanted to run, but he could not move. He was trapped in fear. The truth was clear now. The mark was not human, and whoever had given it to him was here, watching, waiting. The night outside was no longer empty. It was filled with something not of this earth, and Daniel realized his life was no longer his own. The night sky was no longer safe. Daniel stood frozen at the window, Staring at the massive shape above the clouds, it looked silent, heavy, and alive, its dark metal skin glowing with strange symbols. They moved like fire across the surface, matching the glowing mark on Daniel's arm. His body trembled. His breath came in sharp bursts. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The whispers in his head grew stronger, echoing through his skull. "Mate, come to us. You are chosen. You are ours." Suddenly, a beam of pale light shot down from the ship. It was not like a normal light. It did not scatter. It was solid like a column made of glass. It struck the ground outside his house and hummed like thunder without sound. The mark on his arm began to burn, pulling him toward the window. Daniel tried to resist, gripping the frame tightly. But his body moved against his will. Step by step, he was dragged closer like a puppet on strings. Max the dog barked and barked. But then he whined and hid again under the bed. Daniel's heart screamed for help. But his mouth stayed shut. Something was controlling him, guiding him into the light. The moment he stepped outside, the night air changed. It felt heavy, as if the world had stopped breathing. Neighbors' houses were dark, silent, not a single sound of life. Daniel realized with terror that the whole street was frozen. Even the trees did not move, the wind was gone. Only the beam and the ship above remained alive. When his foot touched the light, everything around him blurred. The world dissolved like smoke. Daniel felt his stomach drop, his body rising into the air without wings. The ground below vanished. The roof of his house vanished. In seconds, he was inside the ship. The first thing he noticed was silence. A silence so deep it pressed against his ears like water. The walls were not normal walls, they pulsed like veins, glowing faintly with silver light. The air was warm but smelled strange. Like burnt stone and metal, Daniel's skin prickled, the mark on his arm shining brighter than ever. Then he saw them, figures taller than any human, their bodies long and slender, their skin glowing faintly blue. Their eyes were bright, like small suns without pupils, without mercy. They did not walk, they floated, their feet never touching the ground. Each one wore a cloak that moved like smoke, shifting colors as if alive. One of them stepped forward. His voice did not come from his mouth, it came directly into Daniel's head. "You are the chosen, mate, the mark proves it. You belong to us." Daniel's knees shook. He wanted to shout back, but no sound came. Another figure floated closer, tilting her head like a curious predator. She reached out a long hand, her fingers glowing at the tips. She touched the bandage on his arm, and it burned away into ash, revealing the mark. The aliens hissed together, their voices overlapping like a storm. "It is true, the human carries the bond, the mate has been found." Daniel clutched his arm, his breath sharp. "What do you want from me?" he finally shouted, his voice breaking in the strange silence. The first alien answered, to see, to confirm, to know. "Remove your skin covering, show us fully. The mark must be revealed." Daniel's face went red. His mind raced with panic. They wanted him to take off his clothes, to strip before these glowing creatures. His heart thundered in his chest. "No, I won't do that," he whispered, his voice trembling. But the aliens' eyes glowed brighter, their voices pressing inside his head. "You must, it is sacred, it is proof. Without it, we cannot accept you. Remove your coverings." Daniel stepped back. Shaking, the walls of the ship seemed to close in, breathing faster like a giant animal. He wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The aliens surrounded him, their eyes burning into his soul. "Do it," they demanded together, their voices crashing like waves inside his skull. Daniel shouted back, "I am not your mate, I am human. Leave me alone." But the mark on his arm betrayed him, glowing even brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the ship itself. The aliens hissed again. "The bond cannot be denied. Human words mean nothing. The mark speaks truth." Suddenly, the ship shifted, the walls rippled like water, and a new chamber opened. Inside, Daniel saw something terrifying. Rows of cages filled with strange creatures, some human-like, some not, all marked with glowing symbols. They stared at him with empty eyes, some whispering, some crying. Daniel's stomach turned cold, his skin pale. Was he next? Would he be locked away like them? The thought made him shiver. The leader alien pointed at him. "Bring him before the council. They will decide." Two others floated closer, their hands glowing. Binding Daniel in light like chains, he struggled. But his strength was nothing against them. The chains tightened, dragging him deeper into the ship. The whispers grew louder. "Mate, you are ours. You cannot escape." Daniel's heart hammered in his chest, but deep inside, anger began to rise. He was human, He was not theirs, he told himself again and again, but as the chains pulled him toward the unknown, he feared the truth. Maybe the mark was stronger than his will. Maybe he was never free to begin with. Daniel's body shook as the glowing chains pulled him through the living halls of the alien ship. The walls pulsed like veins, glowing with a rhythm that matched the beat of his mark. Every step echoed in silence, no sound of footsteps, no air moving. Only the hum of the ship itself. The aliens around him floated without effort, their long cloaks whispering like smoke in the dark. Daniel struggled against the chains, but they tightened with every movement, biting into his skin with light instead of metal. He wanted to scream, but the silence of the ship swallowed his voice. The corridor opened into a vast chamber. It was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. The ceiling stretched high like the sky, filled with stars that moved slowly as if alive. The floor was black glass, reflecting his terrified face and the glowing aliens around him. At the center stood a massive circular platform, surrounded by towering figures cloaked in silver light. Their eyes glowed brighter than the others, their presence heavy, ancient, and filled with power. Daniel realized with a sinking heart that he was standing before the alien council. One of the tallest figures leaned forward, his voice entering Daniel's mind like thunder. The mate has arrived, the mark does not lie. The prophecy begins. The other council members whispered among themselves, their voices a storm of echoes. Some spoke with awe, some with anger, and some with fear. Daniel's skin crawled as their glowing eyes studied every inch of him. He felt like an animal placed before judges who were not human, not merciful. Another council member, her voice sharp and cold, spoke. This creature is weak, his body small, his spirit trembling. How can such flesh carry the sacred bond? A deeper voice responded. The prophecy chose him, not us. We cannot deny the mark. The chamber filled with argument, their voices clashing inside Daniel's skull until he covered his ears. But no matter how tightly he pressed his hands, the voices still pierced his mind. Daniel shouted, "Stop! I am not your mate. I am not your prophecy. I am human." His voice cracked, but it echoed across the chamber, breaking the rhythm of their whispers. The leader of the council raised a hand, and the others fell silent. He floated closer to Daniel, his eyes glowing like suns. You do not understand, human. The mark on your arm is older than your world, older than your kind. It is the bond of unity, the bond of fate. Daniel shook his head, his chest tight. I never asked for this. I never wanted this. Take it away. The alien leaned closer, his voice deep. The bond cannot be taken. It can only be fulfilled, and it can only be fulfilled by you. The mark on Daniel's arm pulsed again, glowing brighter. The council hissed in unison. It awakens. It remembers. Daniel stared at the mark, horrified as the lines and circles began to shift, rearranging themselves into new shapes. It was like watching living fire crawl under his skin. The pain made him fall to his knees, his body trembling, his vision blurring. But even through the pain, he felt something else, whispers, memories not his own, visions of a world not Earth, a planet burning with two suns, alien voices crying, promises made long ago. The mark was not just a symbol, it was a key. And now it was unlocking inside him. The cold-voiced council member pointed at Daniel, her eyes sharp. He is dangerous, he is unstable. He cannot control the bond, he will destroy us all. Another shouted, then we must train him. He must be tested if he survives. The prophecy is true. Daniel forced himself to stand, anger rising in his chest. I am not your test subject, I am not your mate, and I am not your prophecy. His voice shook, but his eyes burned with defiance. For the first time, the council hesitated, their glowing forms rippling with uncertainty. Then the leader raised his hand again, silencing the chamber. Human, you will face the trial of loyalty. Only then shall we know if you are worthy. Only then shall we know if the bond is truth or curse. Daniel's stomach dropped. What trial? What are you talking about? The leader's voice was like a blade. You will be shown visions of your kind, your world, your fate. You will choose where your loyalty lies, and the mark will reveal your truth. The council hissed again. Yes, the trial, the trial. Daniel's chains tightened, pulling him toward another chamber. He fought against them, his voice breaking. I will not play your game. But the leader's eyes glowed brighter, his voice slicing into Daniel's mind. You already play, human. The moment the mark touched your flesh, your choice was made. As Daniel was dragged away, he caught sight of something in the shadows, a figure smaller than the others hidden behind the council. Its glowing eyes met his for a brief moment, and Daniel felt a spark. Not of hatred, not of command, but of something else. The figure's voice whispered secretly into his mind, soft and urgent. Do not trust them. The prophecy is not what they say. You are more than their mate. You are more than their bond. Daniel's heart raced. But before he could respond, the chains pulled him into darkness. The chamber doors closed behind him, and the council's whispers faded. All that remained was the mark burning on his arm, alive and restless, and the terrifying thought that his trial was only beginning. The chains of light dragged Daniel into a new chamber. The walls shifted as if they were alive. Stretching and twisting like liquid metal, the air was heavy, thick, filled with a strange humming sound that crawled into his ears. Daniel's chest rose and fell quickly, his breath sharp, his skin cold with sweat. He tried to resist, but the chains pulled harder. Tightening around his arms and legs, finally the chamber sealed itself, and Daniel stood alone in the center of a glowing circle. Then the voice of the council leader filled the chamber. Human, the trial of loyalty begins. You will be tested. Your truth will be revealed. The mark cannot lie, Daniel shouted back. I don't care about your trial. I don't care about your prophecy. Let me go. But the walls ignored his voice, instead glowing brighter until everything turned white. The world spun and Daniel fell into darkness. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer inside the ship. He stood in the middle of his hometown. The streets were empty, but he recognized every building, every sign. The sky above was filled with dark clouds glowing red as if fire burned behind them. He turned in fear and his heart stopped. The ground shook, buildings crumbled, and alien ships filled the sky, raining beams of fire onto the earth. Daniel covered his ears as screams filled the air. Men, women, and children ran for their lives, but there was nowhere to hide. In seconds, the city was ash. Daniel fell to his knees, shouting, "Stop this, it's not real, it's not real." But the fire still burned. The screams still echoed. The mark on his arm glowed, pulling his attention to a figure standing in the flames. An alien council member, her eyes blazing, spoke into his mind. This is your world's fate if you resist. Humans are weak, humans are doomed, only we can protect you. Only we can guide you. Daniel's fists clenched, anger rising in his chest. You're lying. I won't believe this, he growled. The alien's glowing eyes narrowed. Then watch again. The vision shifted, and this time Daniel saw his own home. His mother sitting at the table, smiling as she made breakfast. But the walls cracked, the roof caved in. Alien beams tore the house apart. Daniel screamed as he saw her crushed under rubble. His legs gave out, his body shook. Tears burning his eyes, the alien voice whispered, "This is your loyalty, human. Will you protect them? Or will you protect yourself?" The vision changed again. This time Daniel stood in a strange future city, tall silver towers glowing under two suns. Humans and aliens walked together, their voices calm, their lives peaceful. Children of both species played in the streets, laughter echoing instead of screams. At the center of the city, Daniel saw himself older, standing beside the alien leader, the mark on his arm glowing like a crown. The voice whispered, "This is what happens if you accept. This is what happens if you obey peace, unity, power." Daniel's heart twisted, his mind torn. Was it true? Was this the future he could give his people? But then another vision struck him. Sharp and sudden, the peaceful city cracked. The laughter turned to screams. The aliens chained the humans, forcing them to kneel. And at the center, Daniel's older self wore the mark proudly. But his eyes were empty, hollow, controlled. The voice hissed, "Peace always has a price, human. The question is, who will pay it?" Daniel grabbed his head, his mind spinning. The vision slammed into him again and again. War. Peace, slavery, unity, fire, chains, laughter, screams. He shouted, I can't do this, but the chamber did not stop. The walls pulsed faster, the light brighter, the voices louder. The mark on his arm burned, the pain unbearable through the noise. He heard a different whisper, softer, weaker. It was not the council. It was the hidden figure he had seen before. Do not trust them, Daniel. The trial is not for truth. It is for control. They want to break you, but the choice is yours. Daniel's eyes widened, his heart pounding. The chains of light loosened slightly. He forced himself to stand, even though his body shook with pain. His voice cracked, but he shouted, I am human, and I will not be your slave. I will not let you control me. The visions shattered like glass, the burning cities and peaceful towers dissolving into smoke. Daniel collapsed to the ground, his chest heaving, his body weak. but the mark on his arm pulsed stronger, brighter, not in pain this time, but in defiance. The chamber filled with alien voices, hissing with rage and fear. He resists. He resists the trial. The council leader's voice thundered again, shaking the chamber. Then he is dangerous. He is not loyal. He must be broken. Daniel lifted his head, his eyes blazing with human fire. No, I am not broken. I am human. And that makes me stronger than you. The chamber trembled. The chains cracked. The walls rippled as if the ship itself was reacting. The council leader hissed. Enough, bring him back. The trial has ended. The council will decide his fate. The light chains tightened again, dragging Daniel out of the vision and back into the cold silence of the ship. Daniel's body shook with exhaustion, his heart heavy with the weight of what he had seen. But deep inside, something had changed. He no longer felt like prey. He no longer felt only fear. For the first time, he felt the power of being human. And he knew the council was right about one thing. He was dangerous. Daniel's body was dragged back into the council chamber. His legs barely moved, his chest rose and fell in heavy gasps, his skin pale from the visions he had faced. The chains of light tightened around him, binding him to the black glass floor like a prisoner of fate. The alien council stared with glowing eyes, their whispers sharp and cold. He resisted. He cannot be controlled. The trial has failed. He is dangerous. He must be destroyed before the mark awakens fully. Daniel's heart pounded, but inside anger burned hotter than fear. He glared at them, his voice shaking but strong. I am not yours. I never will be. The leader raised his hand, silencing the chamber. The human speaks with defiance, but the bond cannot be denied. We must decide. Break him or bind him. The council hissed, their forms flickering with unease. Some wanted his destruction, others wanted to use him, but all feared what he might become before a decision could be made. The walls of the chamber rippled. A shadow moved, small and quick, breaking through the circle of light. Daniel turned his head and saw the same hidden figure from before, the one with softer eyes, the one who whispered to him during the trial. The figure raised a hand and suddenly the chains of light cracked. Daniel gasped as the bindings loosened. The council roared in fury, their voices shaking the chamber. Traitor, betrayal, stop them. The figure's voice spoke directly into Daniel's mind, clear and urgent. Run now before they regain control. The floor beneath Daniel shifted, opening into a narrow passage of light. He stumbled forward, his body weak but his spirit alive. The hidden figure floated beside him, guiding him into the depths of the ship behind them. The council's furious voices echoed. Find them, hunt them, kill them both. The passage twisted like the inside of a living creature. The walls pulsed with strange symbols, some matching the mark on Daniel's arm. He pressed his hand against one of them and the mark glowed brighter. The wall opened, revealing a hidden path. The figure looked at him with surprise. You can command the ship. The bond is stronger in you than they feared. Daniel shook his head, his voice low. I don't want this. I don't want any of it, the figure replied softly. Want it or not, the mark chose you. And now you must choose what to do with it. They reached a chamber far from the council's eyes. It was darker, quieter, filled with cages of light. Inside the cages were others, aliens of different shapes, some tall, some small, some human-like, and some not. Their eyes glowed faintly, their bodies weak. Daniel's stomach twisted as he realized the truth. These were prisoners, beings who had resisted the council's control. The figure whispered, This is the rebellion. This is what they hide. You are not the first to fight them. Daniel stepped closer, staring at the prisoners. Some looked at him with hope, others with despair. One reached out a trembling hand, touching the glowing mark on his arm through the cage. The cage flickered, the light weakening. The prisoner gasped. The bond, the prophecy. It lives in him. Others began to stir, their voices weak but filled with fire. Free us, human, free us, and together we can fight. Daniel's mind spun, fear and responsibility crashing together. He had not asked for this, he was just one man. Yet here he was, standing before prisoners who saw him as their savior. The hidden figure touched his shoulder, their glowing eyes calm. This is your choice, Daniel. You can walk away and let the council break you. Or you can stand and fight with us. Daniel's chest tightened, his voice low. If I fight, will we even have a chance? The figure nodded slowly. With the mark, yes. Without it, no. Daniel closed his eyes, memories of his trial flashing in his mind. He had seen Earth burning, he had seen humans enslaved. He had seen himself hollow and controlled. But he had also felt the fire of resistance, the strength of being human. His eyes snapped open, burning with determination. "Then we fight," he said, his voice strong. The hidden figure smiled faintly, then raised their hand. The cages cracked open one by one, prisoners stepping out with trembling legs but fierce eyes. Some carried weapons made of light. Others carried only their will to resist. Daniel's mark glowed brighter, and the prisoners bowed their heads. "The mate, the chosen, the leader," they whispered. Daniel raised his arm, his voice ringing through the chamber. "I am not your mate, I am not your ruler, I am human. And I will fight with you, not above you." The chamber shook as alarms blared through the ship. The council had discovered their escape. The walls pulsed with angry red light, voices booming. "Rebellion will be crushed. The human will be destroyed." Daniel stood tall, his fear still inside him but no longer controlling him. He looked at the prisoners, now his allies, and said, "Then let's show them what humans can do." The hidden figure led them into the tunnels, the sound of approaching guards echoing through the halls. Daniel's mark flared with light, opening paths the others could not see. For the first time, he was not just running. He was fighting back, and deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The rebellion had started, and the council would soon learn that humans were far more dangerous than they had ever believed. The rebellion moved through the hidden tunnels of the alien ship. Daniel's arm burned with light, the mark glowing brighter with each step. It was no longer a simple pattern. The lines moved like rivers of fire under his skin. Every time he touched a wall, it opened. Every time he raised his hand, the ship itself seemed to obey. The rebels looked at him with awe, whispering, "The bond is alive. The prophecy walks among us." Daniel shook his head, his jaw tight. "I am not your prophecy, I am only human." But deep inside, he wondered if the mark had chosen him for something far greater than he wanted. The alarms continued to scream, red light flashing along the walls. The council's guards were closing in, tall figures of glowing blue with eyes like burning suns. The rebels fought fiercely, their weapons of light clashing against the guards' blades of energy. Daniel stayed close to the hidden figure, who guided him through the chaos. Yet even as they fought, Daniel felt the mark pulling him toward something. It was not random, it was leading him deeper, toward the very heart of the ship. At last they reached a massive chamber unlike the others. The ceiling stretched high above, filled with symbols that burned like stars. At the center stood a black pillar taller than any tower Daniel had seen. The pillar pulsed with the same rhythm as his mark. Glowing brighter as he stepped closer, the rebels stopped in fear, their voices trembling. "This is the core, the oldest part of the ship, the place where the prophecy lives." Daniel's breath caught, his body trembling. He knew somehow that the truth he feared most was waiting inside. The moment Daniel touched the pillar, the entire chamber exploded with light. The rebels shielded their eyes. The guards froze in shock. Even the alarms fell silent. Symbols burst across the walls, ancient and alien, yet Daniel could read them, not with his mind but with his blood, the mark translating every word. The pillar spoke in a voice older than the stars. "The one who carries the bond shall reveal the truth. The fate of two worlds rests in their hand." The light wrapped around Daniel, lifting him into the air. His clothes burned away in a flash, leaving his skin glowing as the mark spread across his body. It was no longer a small symbol. It was a full map, covering his chest, his arms, his face. The rebels gasped in awe. The guards hissed in fear. The council's voice thundered across the ship. "Reveal him, strip him bare, let the prophecy be seen." And for the first time, Daniel understood why they wanted him exposed. The mark was not just a bond, it was a message written on human flesh. The chamber filled with a blinding image, not painted, not projected, but alive. The mark revealed a prophecy thousands of years old. It showed humans and aliens standing together, not as enemies, not as slaves, but as equals. Yet it also showed fire, war, betrayal, blood covering the stars. The final words burned in the air. "The one who carries this bond will decide the fate of both worlds. Peace or destruction, unity or chains." Daniel dropped back to the floor, his body shaking, his chest burning from the weight of the vision. The rebels knelt before him, their voices trembling. "The prophecy is true. The mate has revealed the message." The guards staggered back, some lowering their weapons, unsure of what to believe. But then the council's leader appeared, his massive form glowing brighter than all the others. His eyes burned into Daniel, his voice like fire. The prophecy is dangerous, it must be controlled, he is not our savior. He is our weapon. The chamber shook as the council's power filled the air. The rebels stood ready to fight, their eyes blazing with defiance, Daniel's fists clenched, the mark pulsing with his heartbeat. He stared at the council leader and shouted, "I am not your weapon, I am not your slave, I am human, and I will choose my own path," the mark flared in response, sending out a wave of light that knocked guards and rebels alike to the ground. The council leader roared in fury, his form expanding, his body splitting into a storm of light and shadow. The rebels gasped in terror. The true form. The council reveals itself. Daniel fell to his knees. His body trembling, the mark burned hotter, spreading like fire across his skin. The prophecy had been revealed, but the choice it spoke of was still ahead. Would he bring peace between the two species, or would he lead them into war? The council's leader hissed, "Choose human now." Before the stars themselves burn, Daniel's heart pounded, his body weak but his spirit burned with defiance. He lifted his glowing arm, staring at the rebels, the guards and the council, and he knew the next step would change not only his life, but the future of two entire worlds. The great reveal was done, and now the final choice waited. The chamber shook as the mark on Daniel's body burned like a living fire. The rebels crouched in fear, the guards trembled. Even the ship itself seemed alive, pulsing with the rhythm of his heartbeat. The council leader's form grew larger, splitting into waves of light and shadow, his voice crashing like thunder. "You are the bond, the prophecy. You must choose peace or war, obedience or freedom." Daniel's chest heaved, his fists clenched. The visions from the trial returned to his mind. He had seen Earth burning. He had seen humans enslaved. He had seen himself hollow and controlled. But he had also seen a chance for unity, a chance for peace, a chance to change everything. The rebels looked at him with hope, their eyes glowing faintly. The guards stared with confusion, unsure whether to fight or kneel. The council's voice filled the chamber again. Sharper, angrier. "Submit, human, accept the bond as mate, obey us, and we will give your kind peace." Daniel shook his head, his voice steady though his body trembled. "No, peace built on chains is not peace. It is only slavery," the council leader roared, his form striking like lightning. A blast of energy shot toward Daniel, but the mark flared, shielding him in a wall of light. The rebels gasped, their voices echoing. "The bond protects him. He cannot be broken." Daniel felt power flowing through his veins. Not his own, but ancient, older than Earth. It whispered to him, guiding him, offering him strength, but it also warned him. "Every choice carried a price," the council leader hissed, his voice sharp. "Then you will fight, but if you fight, your world will burn." Daniel stepped forward, the mark blazing brighter. "I will not fight for you. I will not fight against my kind. I will fight for freedom, for both humans and aliens, because no one should live in chains." The chamber shook harder, cracks forming in the black glass floor. The rebels rose to their feet, inspired by Daniel's words. They lifted their weapons of light, their voices strong. For freedom, for the bond, for the rebellion. The guards wavered, torn between the council's command and the power they saw before them. Some lowered their weapons, stepping back. Others roared in loyalty to the council, charging forward. The battle erupted, light clashing against light, screams filling the chamber. Daniel stood at the center, his mark blazing like a sun. The council leader towered above, his form shifting between fire and shadow. "You are nothing, human. Your kind is dust compared to us." Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. "Maybe we are dust, but we are dust that fights, dust that refuses to die, and that makes us stronger than you." The mark exploded with power, sending a wave of light across the chamber. The rebels were shielded, but the council's guards were thrown back, their forms scattering like broken glass. The leader staggered, his form flickering, his voice filled with rage. "This is not possible. The bond cannot defy the council." Daniel stepped closer, his eyes burning with human fire. "The bond is not yours. It never was. It chose me, it chose humanity, and I choose freedom." The mark spread across the walls. Across the ceiling, the entire ship glowed, the symbols alive, the prophecy fully revealed. The voice of the pillar echoed once more, ancient and powerful. "The one who carries the bond is not the mate. Not the slave, but the ruler of choice, the master of destiny. The council gasped, their glowing eyes wide with fear. They had twisted the prophecy. They had hidden the truth. Daniel was not their mate. Daniel was their ruler. The leader roared, lunging at Daniel in one final attack. But Daniel raised his arm, the mark blazing brighter than ever. A wave of pure light burst forth, striking the leader, shattering his form into fragments of fire and shadow. The chamber fell silent, the rebels staring in awe, the guards kneeling in fear. The council was broken, their leader destroyed. Daniel stood in the center, his body glowing with the mark. The power inside him whispered again, "You must choose peace or war, unity or destruction." Daniel's chest heaved, his voice steady. "I choose freedom. Not for me, not for one side, but for all. Humans and aliens both." The light spread across the ship, silencing the alarms, calming the chaos. The rebels dropped their weapons. The guards lowered their heads. The hidden figures stepped forward, their voice soft. "You have done what no one else could. You turned the prophecy into truth. Not theirs, but yours," Daniel nodded, his voice low but firm. "I was never your mate. Never your slave, I was human, and that was enough." The chamber quieted. The ship floated in silence above the earth. The future was uncertain, but for the first time it was free. Daniel looked at the stars, his mark glowing faintly now. He knew the fight was not over, but he also knew something greater. The council had feared humans for a reason. Because humans were not weak, humans were dangerous, and now the universe would never forget it.